Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Speed Talk. This is episode 15. Tonight, we have the pleasure of being joined by the driver of the Roberts Motorsports, number 58, Garrett Alberson. Garrett, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here.
So, first off, got some big plans for this weekend. Looks like you're going to Makokata, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, weather pending, kind of. We're just watching. Yeah, we're gonna go for sure to the track. It looks like the timing of it might work out pretty good, so we're just gonna go over there and see what we can get.
So now Makokata is that, I don't even know, what state is that in?
It's in Iowa, actually. It's just
Oh,
north of the Quad Cities over here.
okay.
So that's not too far for you guys then.
No, not at all. About 30 minutes.
So
Gotcha.
now where are you? I mean, obviously you're raised out of Las Cruces, correct?
Correct.
Where are you based out of racing wise though?
Right now, our shop's technically in Kelowna, Illinois,
Okay.
just on the Illinois side of the river here, in the Quad Cities, like kind of on the outskirts of Moline area. So
Okay.
actually, pretty decent little racing town. There's a bunch of the local teams in the area are right in this little neighborhood, so it's pretty sweet.
Now is this a track you typically like to go to? I mean, a place you run pretty decent at?
I think I've only raced there like 3 or 4 times, so don't have a whole lot of laps there. But the couple times that we've been, I feel like we've been fairly competitive, and it's definitely in the same like style of track that I feel like we need to work on a little bit. So I'm pretty excited.
Is this a bigger track, smaller track? I guess I've never watched a race there. I've never seen a
I don't
race at
think I have
Makokata.
either.
Yeah, it's pretty small. It's like maybe in the bigger end of a quarter mile.
No, it's little.
Yeah, like 618 gear. So it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So now you had a race, was it Atomic last week and Browns? Where were you at last week? Atomic, right?
Sounds-
And
Yep, Atomic in Ohio, and then Brownstown in Indiana.
kind of recap your weekend there. Was it a good weekend for you, or how'd things go?
It had the potential to be a good weekend, I think. We qualified pretty good both nights. Ran second in the heat the first night and was up as high as second or third in the feature at times. And then I didn't have good speed leaving turn four, which was super slick. And that kind of left me open to a bunch of slide jobs and stuff. And on the other end where there was some speed. And yeah, track was just a little bit tricky to defend your position on. Like if somebody slid you, there wasn't a lot of like grip or a cushion or anything to really like get your speed built back up on. So it was kind of tricky. We ended up falling back to sixth there at the end. And then Brownstown, we actually won our heat pretty sporty. And then I don't know. I think we maybe just overthought it or something in that feature. We backed up pretty bad. I ended up actually looping it, trying to change lanes, move around to figure out where I want my car to be at. Looped it, and then yeah, just got unbalanced, and so we pitted a couple times, just trying to make adjustments, trying to make it better, and I think we were able to get back up to like 14th, but that was about it. So it was
Isn't
a
that just the that's just the worst feeling, isn't it? You spin
yeah,
out. Just such a
uh,
such a helpless feeling.
yeah, especially when you can't blame it on anybody. You're like, oh
Right.
yeah, I'm just an idiot.
We've all done that
Yeah,
for sure.
it's unfortunate, but
So
at least
then,
nobody hit us. So that's
sorry,
good.
go ahead.
But yeah, I was gonna say at least nobody hit us, and I didn't
Yep.
tear stuff up, so that was good.
And how much this really? I mean, we've had a couple late model guys on here before that are points racers, Devin Moran and whatnot, and I'm always just curious to think how you guys view points as of like, it's March right now. How do you guys enjoy it, but still, keep your focus on the points battle at the same time?
It's tricky. It's a tricky balance. I our goal going into this year was to try to get into that top four when the cutoff happens to at least give ourselves a shot at that championship. And when we left out of speed weeks, we weren't far out, and we actually had a good a decent night at Atomic. I think we felt or got up to fifth for a second there in the points, and then whenever that took place at Brownstown, we actually lost fifth again, fell back to sixth. So yeah, I shouldn't worry about it so much because really the only thing you can do is just put in good nights.
Mm,
Yeah, just put in good nights. Try to run up front. It is tricky though because like there are times where if you push the limit, maybe you could find something that could win you the race, but you could also wipe out or fall off track. Do whatever something dumb that would really jeopardize it. So yeah, it's always a tough balance.
yeah,
That's
for
kind
sure.
of we're good buddies with Jake Tim. Back when Jake was running, he was leading the USMTS points last year, and Jake's always kind of been a wide open on the wall type guy. And as he took that points lead, you could really see him mature as a driver. Like, hey, maybe tonight I just got to take third. Instead of going
Yeah,
up there and trying to knock the spoiler off and trying to take the win tonight, I just got to fall in and take the points. And um, that's kind of the same way Devin Moran kind of said. He's like, your goal every night is to try to win races, but you've also got to be conscious of, I throw a stupid slide job here and I pile the thing in the wall. Now I just went from a second place night to, a low points night. So,
yeah,
but
yeah, and
that,
it especially when you're a little bit behind where you want to be in the points because now the only thing that can get you where you want to be is to like try really hard,
Yeah.
and so
right.
you're even more on the edge of that walking that line. So yeah, try not to think about it too much. Just try to do the best you can every night, and hopefully, as they say, that it'll take care of itself. But minimize mistakes for sure as
Right.
best you can.
And since you've been in the late model world, I mean, is points racing been mainly a thing? I know you did MLRA for a little while there. And then obviously we've seen you on the Lucas Tour for how many years now? You won Rookie of the Year in 22,
Hmm.
so this be your third or fourth year. But
Yeah, I think I guess it'd be fourth. This is the starting the fourth year here. So
yeah,
um, yeah, growing up racing locally, we always kind of got into the points like the like track champion stuff
yep,
a little bit, and so I guess to a degree, I've always kind of raced with that mentality. I never really had that. Um, well, I guess in the Southwest, you didn't have enough tracks to have that barnstorming, just go where you want to try to win races at.
right.
So you're always kind of focused on the track championship. So I guess it's just kind of the mentality I grew up in. So um, I guess it's nothing really like out of the ordinary, trying to run that point style deal,
Right.
and I appreciate the challenge of it too. I feel like it's a good way to like round yourself out as a driver, I think.
And it's a long year, a lot of racing. Just even if you're just sticking strictly to that Lucas schedule, I mean, it's a lot of racing. And obviously, you guys are finding places here and there that you can hit when you're not on the Lucas tour, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Have you ever figured out how many nights you put in a season? I mean, do you got an idea of how many nights you race a year?
Yeah. So the last couple of years, we've been right around like 95 to 98 actual race nights. And then if you include the practices, we're usually on track over 100 nights. So like
Wow.
100 to 110 nights altogether.
Jesus,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty.
that's
30-year
crazy.
year, you're on the racetrack.
I've probably raced 100 nights in probably the last, what, 8 years.
Yeah, seriously.
So we race Fountain City or Mississippi Thunder, Deer Creek Speedway weekly. We race modifieds. Well, I race BMOD, he races modified. So that's kind of the area we race. But actually, I can't remember what year it was, Garrett. You came up, you were in a black car with orange numbers. I think you were actually number 59.
Yep.
Were you 59 at one point?
Yeah, first time I ever went to Fountain City was I was driving for Ken, but it was I was the second car, and I was actually 59. Yeah,
Yep. So I remember that because we
And who
complete.
drove the 58?
at the time Jeremiah Hurst.
That's
Yep.
okay. Yep.
Because kind of up until that point, Garrett, I'll be completely honest, I hadn't really heard much about you. And I just remember we were at Deer Creek. I think it was the first time we had the Lucas guys here, and I just remember you were hauling ass in a heat race or something, and we were all kind of like, God, who's this? Because you were out of Louisiana at the time, right?
Well, I
Or
kind of just moved, but yeah, basically.
were you out of Louisiana at one point? For some reason, I thought I remembered you being from Louisiana, but maybe I was wrong there.
Well, early in the deal, I moved from Louisiana up to,
Okay.
but yeah, that first year driving for Ken, I didn't really, um, like I don't even know if I had an apartment or anything at that point.
Yeah.
We were much living in the truck, just kind of doing whatever it took to try to stay racing.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess, but give us some background on you, Garrett. Like, where was your start in racing? I mean, where do you originally grow up? What was what was the first thing you drove? Just kind of give us your background on how you got, where you started and to where you're at now.
Yeah, so born in Austin, Texas, actually, but grew up all in New Mexico. I think we moved there when I was like one, so I don't think it counts that I was born somewhere else. So yeah, grew up in New Mexico. We were fortunate actually when I got old enough to race that well, my dad raced before I did. My dad and my uncles on my mom's side, um, they were always into racing stuff or hot rod and stuff, and so kind of growing up, dad actually, whenever he moved to back to Las Cruces from Austin, he built his own hobby stock and started racing the dirt track. There was a track um, off of Interstate 10 that isn't doesn't run anymore. That was the track in Las Cruces, and he raced there. And then there was a track in El Paso, and then a track in Alamogordo. And it was like a triangle, pretty much like hour and 45-minute triangle.
Yep.
You meet those three there, and so watched dad race. Always loved it. Like that's what I wanted to do, just because he was so cool, and I thought it was really cool what he was doing. And he just raced, hobby stock, street stock, mostly just for fun. But I don't know why I was there. We were there at the track one night, just watching, and I was sitting in the stands with dad, and they came over the intercom and they were saying something about this enduro race that they were going to have. That track, I guess they used to have enduros like way back in like the 80s or 90s or something. Or like, yeah, I guess it's been the 80s. But they hadn't done it in a while. And so they were like, yeah, we're going to start this enduro thing again. And I don't know, I was like 10 years old or like 9 years old or something. I looked over at my dad, I was like, I want to race in that. I don't even know why I thought that. You know what I mean? Like, and I didn't think he would take me seriously. And like a month or so later, he is traded a tile job for he does ceramic tile work.
Yeah.
Traded a tile job for like a Camaro, and we put this thing together. And I was 10. We went and raced this enduro, and I don't. There wasn't. It was the first one in years, so there wasn't like a lot of rules. And I don't think they realized there was a 10-year-old kid in there until sometime after the race. And so when the next one came around, they put a 13-year-old age limit on it, so I didn't get to do it for a few
Ah,
years. But and now started the first like real race car I got to run. There was that same area had a truck class. It was it'd be a lot like the trucks they run at Marshalltown. It was like a G body metric
Yep.
frame with like truck body, basically like a super stock truck. Um, and the class was kind of small when we first got into it. They were all locally built, like spec trucks, and it was like the perfect class to start in when you're like 13 or 14, because there's about 12 to 15 trucks most nights, and so you get your laps, and it wasn't like super serious or competitive like the street stock class was or anything at that time. And so yeah, just got going in that, and we actually, I think I won like the fourth night out or something like that. So then now you're hooked. You're like, oh yeah, we're this, and yeah, just yeah, once we won a couple races and just all in, and yeah, I just loved it. Did race those trucks for um, probably about 5 or so years, and a guy that I'd met in that class was named Dave Dietz. He actually used to race late models out in like Arizona and stuff back in the 90s when it was real popular out in that part of the country. And he had this old bullet chassis that he'd raced back then. And the thing about the desert, like nothing deteriorates out there other than the
Right.
paint gets burned off of it. So he had this like 88 bullet chassis that he'd raced in the early 90s, and it was just sitting out in the weeds, been sitting out there since then. And he saw some flyer for a race in Arizona that was like 6 nights of racing or something like that. And I had just lost the guy that I was driving for ended up selling the stuff, and so I didn't have a ride. and I don't even think I had a job or anything. I didn't have anything to do. And he called me up because I had done some stuff like odd jobs for him. And he was like, "Hey, I saw this flyer for this late model race. I'm gonna put that old car that's sitting out in the weeds, and if you help me put it together, I'll let you race half the races." And I'm like, "Sweet, I ain't got nothing else to do, you know." And I'd always liked late models since I was a kid. We'd get to see them like once a year. They'd have like a special event at our track like once a year. The guys from Arizona would come down. Um, and even though it was like sprint car and modified country, I like always loved late models. I thought they were the coolest. So I'm like, "Ah, cool, we'll do that." Well, I didn't realize that this was like we didn't even know anything about any of the races out there. Well, this is the Wild West Shootout in 2010, and we show up there with this cobbled together 88 Bullet chassis in 2010. Billy Moyer, Jimmy Mars, Shannon Babb, all these guys are there, and we're like, "This is not good."
And you'd never driven a late model up to this point?
No, no, no. I think we three laps.
Holy.
Threw you out to the wolves.
Yeah, yeah, it was bad. It was it was straight up ass kicking right there. Yeah. I think the last night of the whole, like, we crashed and broke and this thing barely worked. And I think the last night, we stayed after and worked on it the whole time. And I like kept up with the back of the B main cars or something like that. Like I didn't spin out. I didn't like get lapped in this B main. And we thought we were like, all right, we're finally getting somewhere. And so like that's how it all started. So
So then,
Awesome.
I guess take us into, I mean, obviously a big jump from there to where you're at now. Kind of what
mm,
went into getting that Roberts Motorsports ride. Just yeah, what got you to, where you're at today, racing at the level you're at. I mean, I think of you, as one of the top guys in the nation. Kind of what transpired in those years from racing in the Wild West Shootout in 2010 and an 88, you know, late model to what you're doing now.
um, yeah, that once we got going on that deal, it was. I mean, the cars are just so fast and so cool, and we just got hooked into it, and just kept building that project with Dietz there, and raced for a few years, just kind of learning a lot of stuff all the hard way. Everything from scratch to crash and break and everything you could do. Um, and we started getting some masters built cars and started talking to Ronnie Stuckey, who had that masters built by Stuckey program for a little while, and got to know Ronnie. And I think it was like December of 13. I decided, or we talked to him, and he thought it'd be cool if I came over there and helped him work on stuff and just kind of hang out. Well, that went really well, and I ended up moving over there the next year and working was right when Black Diamond started.
Yeah.
And so was kind of in on that deal from the get go, building them cars over there. And I just assembled. I never welded or anything, but and then got to drive for a guy down there for a few years, and he actually had really nice cars, all Ronnie stuff, and didn't get super far with it. I mean, we had some good nights here and there. We'd make Lucas shows and stuff, but nothing that nobody really caught on to. And I just always was like I can make them races, but I couldn't run in the top 10. Like I was just always that step behind those national guys, and just always kind of wondering what I was lacking. And in 17, partway through 17, man I was driving for ended up selling the team out, and I just had like odd rides through the end of the year, and so I didn't know what I was going to do the next year. Ron decided to start up the house car team with Earl, and so in 18 and 19, I ended up going riding up and down the road crewing for Earl, and it was one of those things. It's like, do I stick around, try to like find an odd ride, and keep toughing it out, or go up and down the road and see what it really takes to run up front? Because the Lucas is always where I wanted to get.
Now, was that Earl Pearson Jr.?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, sir. And maybe I could learn like what that last little like 5-10% is that I
Right.
missed. And so while I was in that process, Ken, who we built some cars for over the years at Black Diamond, and I'd met through that, him and I started texting and calling a lot for like tech support, I suppose. Like he was racing here locally with Jeremiah Hurst. and running really good IMCA stuff. They were winning a lot of races, and they ended up winning, I think, the IMCA national title in 18. I remember if they did in 19, they might have again in 19, or they were really close. But they, um, during some of that, he would call me and just like pick my brain on what stuff to work on, and I was like in deep in the middle of his house car team, so um, we were probably had the most info at the time and stuff, and we built a pretty good friendship. And when I decided at the end of 19 I was going to leave that house car team and try to get back to driving, I must have mentioned it to Ken somewhere in there. And at first he was trying to get me a ride with a guy in Wisconsin, a guy that he knew pretty well. And it almost went through. Like I went up there, checked out his shop, talked to him, and all that stuff. And it was like literally the week that COVID shut down everything,
Oh.
and um, and I think it kind of spooked him, and the money situation that he had and stuff. He got nervous for it, and so he backed out of that. And then I don't know if Ken felt bad or what, but he was like, "Well, we just built the second car, so you can just come drive it." So I'm like, "All right, sweet." And yeah, so that's how it started. It was teammates with Jeremiah for 2 years there, and it's interesting that we ended up in this Lucas deal because I remember talking to him in those years. I always told him that was my goal, and he's like, "Well, I'm not the guy to get you there in the Lucas deal, but I'll try to keep you racing as much as you can until you can find somebody that will." But I think Ronnie Stuckey being such a cool guy that he is, knew that was my goal. And when the opportunity kind of arose in 22, or before 22, that it was going to be um, kind of an interesting rookie class. He talked Ken into it somehow to and we had just Ken and Jeremiah just parted ways there at the end of 21. And so it was just going to be a one car team. And so we were going to have like a little more resources maybe, and but no full time help. We had to round up some stuff like that. And but yeah, somehow Ronnie talked Ken into starting this whole process, and yeah, I'm pretty thankful he did.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. And now, like I said, now you're one of the top guys in the nation. I mean, it's crazy how it's crazy the directions life takes you. You know, you go from pitting for a guy, and a couple years later, now you're kind of at the top of the game. It's just pretty cool to see what can happen in a few years.
Yeah, it is really cool. It opens, well, it opened my eyes to how much you can, how many cool things can actually take place, and how much you can grow as a person if you just stick with it. Because same basic guy that I was years ago, but just I guess just choosing the same thing over and over again. Just kind of kept heading us in that same direction there.
Was there ever a time where, you know, reality might have kind of hit you and you're like, shit, I might have to find a real job, this might not be paying the bills. Was that ever a thought, or was it I'm gonna be a race car driver, or I'm gonna be a race car driver no matter what?
Well, I mean, I'm sure. I'd say there were probably nights in there where you wreck or do something dumb, and you're just like, man, I don't know if I'm ever gonna like figure this out enough to get to do it the way that I want. It is tough in the racing deal, especially when you're doing, like, usually I do a lot of the setup stuff myself, or at least have in the past. And so you're always kind of wondering, like, when you're struggling, is it my driving, or am I just not that smart on the car? Like what am I missing there? And so yeah, there were times where I didn't know if it would all ever come together, but yeah, it's pretty rewarding, I'd say, to see it all kind of like head in a good direction, rather.
No, absolutely.
And then with that success, well, just success on the Lucas Tour in general, it seemed like for a really long time, Garrett Alberson was always on the podium every single night. You were obviously keeping up pace with those guys. You were running really good, but it was just, I mean, what did it take to finally get over that hump and win one of those Lucas races? Because, like, obviously, we don't have nearly as many wins as you do. You probably have as many wins this year as we do in our careers, but I mean, just that it takes a lot to win that first one. And I know you just ran so well for so long, and when you get to that pace, it's like a different pace. And yeah, I was just curious what it took for you to finally jump off or jump over that leap and get that first Lucas win.
Yeah, I don't know. It was I'm kind of the type, I suppose, that never really had a ton of like just natural confidence built in me. Like I always kind of gain confidence whenever I saw myself do something, which means that you don't have confidence for a while before you do it. And it's not like you're sitting there choosing to to have a bad mindset. I don't think about it, but you're just you're not telling yourself maybe the right things for a long time that like for sure I can win these races. It's more like, man, I don't know if I can win these races because I just haven't done anything like that yet. But I think fortunately getting to race like we have and as many nights as you have, at some point you realize like, yeah, I might be lining up next to JD one, time, or next to Ricky another time, or Devin, or any of these like elite guys. But then you do it enough times, you're like, it's just the guys I race with, I guess. You know what I mean? It's like I can do. And at some point, you're like, I've literally beat every one of these guys in some scenario, like
Yeah.
everyone. I just got to do it all in one shot. It's all.
Right. I remember, I think it was last year. I don't remember if it was the World 100 or the Dream. It was one of those big races at Eldora. I remember I was sitting next to my dad watching, and I'm like, it might have been JD. I don't remember who it was. It was one of you guys, and I'm like, do you guys still get nervous? Like when you're sitting on the front row, you still got the jitters, or is it just kind of like, this is my job, got to go out here and perform?
uh, yeah, for sure. I think you still do. I think. I mean, especially the big shows. I think anybody would be lying if they didn't, feel that. I think that's one of the beautiful things of it is like no matter how many times you have done it, like you feel that, like you feel pretty alive in that moment. Like, man, this is big stuff right here. Which is one of the cool things about it, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's getting. I mean, I think it's getting better, I suppose, to where like if you're on a front row with Ricky to start this heat race or something like that, you're like, I just got to do my job. You know what I mean? Just got to do the same thing I try to always do and make good decisions. And um, but the cool thing is, the longer you do it, the more I feel like I'm getting over the like, oh man, I'm against Ricky or something like that. To where now you're trying to like maybe pick them apart a little bit and try to learn the tendencies that you can find something against them on, and start to actually play the game a little bit better. So
No,
And
absolutely.
that confidence definitely just builds as you run at that pace too. You know, when you start like I struggled in a B mod for a while, and then I obviously it took a little help on the technical support type stuff, but just that top five pace when you constantly run it, you constantly start to feel like, okay, I can run with these guys. And then when you finally get out in front of them, it you have the confidence to drive away from them. It's a lot. Takes a lot not to overthink dirt racing, I feel like, or any race in general. But
yeah, I agree, 100%.
I feel like that's something I'm always trying to tell myself. Like Um, I get very worked up in a race car match. I try to, like you're sitting in the lineup, and it's like, okay, you're trying to calm yourself down, and then it's like I feel like once you pull onto the racetrack, your nerves kind of go away a little bit, and then it's like you said, just don't make stupid decisions. Just find the brown and try to be smart for. I mean, you guys are racing 100 laps, 50 laps. We're only racing 20, but it's like I just gotta try to find the moisture here for 20 laps and not overthink racing. We're just going in circles. Any way you look at it, we're just turning left.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But no, another one I want to ask you here, Garrett. What's maybe a race that you've never won that every year you set out for? Like, what's number one on that list? Race I want to win.
I mean, for sure, everybody, everyone's probably gonna say the World 100.
Yeah, it's
That'd
pretty
be like,
typical.
yeah, that'd be like Daytona 500 type of thing. Eldora is just one of those places that it's almost just a lot of things have to go your way. There's a little bit of luck involved, and you got to have a really good car and just make good decisions like every time you touch the track all week long. And so that's kind of the obvious one. I really like. I feel like I've been pretty close to winning stuff at like say Wheatland,
Yep.
uh, Lucas Oil Speedway, and I feel like that would be really cool just to win. Well, to win any race
Yep.
there because it's such a cool facility and a cool place. And that's probably of the tracks we go to. It's probably the one that I've run the most. So I've kind of got like a little, you know, like get a lot of good memories there. It was one of the actually might have been the very first Lucas show I ever attended as a driver was there at Wheatland. So um, and that and then probably like that North South 100 at Florence. I've always
Yep.
liked so those are a couple I think that would be pretty special.
And now north
Lawrence looks
south,
like a cool place.
north south. That's like 75,000 to win, right? That's a big one.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Now, what would you say? Like you said, you've obviously won a lot of races in your career. What has been number one? I mean, biggest race you feel you've ever won?
I think um, money wise, we were able to win that Volusia race, World Outlaws race, during Speed Weeks this year, and that was the biggest uh, achievement, I suppose, money wise. I still think the most um, important is going to be winning that first Lucas show, which would be like first national show, just breaking through that deal. And it was a cool race too. Like it
That
was
was a great race.
Yeah, it was so wild just coming down to the line like in a dead heat with Devin and both of us.
Where was that at? I remember that. I'm just trying
At
to.
Port Royal.
Yep, Port Royal in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I do. Did
That
you
was a
pass him on the last corner or something? Or
Yeah, that was the
right?
only, yeah, that was the only lap I led
That's right. Yep, I remember that.
that's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's awesome.
that place has to be just a speed palace. Holy crap. You guys gotta be hauling pretty good there.
Yeah, that's probably one of the faster feeling tracks, as far as like the sensation of speed or however you want to look at it, just because it's got those long straightaways and really for its size, and how long the straightaways are, the corners are still pretty banked. Like a lot of tracks when you get to that, long straightaway half mile type of situation like Hagerstown or trying to think of another one. Um, that Georgetown's in that same realm, but it's a little D-shaped and it's not quite as big probably, but um, like the old Muskogee, like Thunderbird in Oklahoma, the corners really don't have a lot of banking. I think just because it gets so fast when you add that banking to them. But really, I feel like Port Royal's got pretty good banking for a track its size, and so yeah, all night long you really haul the mail. It's pretty awesome.
Is that your bread and butter, big racetracks, or do you like the tighter stuff?
Well, it's weird. There's kind of a shift in there somewhere. Growing up, the biggest thing we had um, in like our immediate area was like small 3/8 type stuff and quarter miles and and then Tucson when I first started racing late models that was the biggest fastest thing I'd ever been on, and it's just like a good size 3/8 but like real round, carries a lot of momentum.
Hmm.
And so I'd never been anything that had like real straightaways and like where you're really hauling the mail. And something about those big wide tracks that have a lot of like lane choices, they get really confusing, and you got to have a lot of things going right for you. And the first like year or two running them, especially like when we started out that Lucas deal, I feel like we kind of struggled with like the whole approach to them, car wise and driving wise. And fortunately, just getting to do it a little bit and getting to talk to cool people like Earl and stuff and bounce ideas off of Earl's always been good at big tracks. Um, and just kind of grow that a little bit. And it seemed like the Longhorn cars um, kind of fit that scenario pretty well, also, which helps out. There when we were with in Ronnie's cars, I feel like our strong suit was like Fairbury, Farmer City, the little tracks, and and for whatever reason, whenever we got in these Longhorns, it kind of went the other way almost. And like this year, one of my focuses is trying to get better on the little tracks because I feel like we're we're behind just a little bit on them.
Hmm.
So what would
Gotcha.
you say? Obviously you raced with Black Diamond there for quite a while. What's kind of been the jump been like from Black Diamond going to the Longhorn stuff? I mean, are they pretty comparable or do they drive one's a Ford, one's a Chevy? Do they drive completely different or are they pretty comparable?
I think most modern late models are all in the same basic, you know, same plane for the most part. You kind of focus on a lot of the same things, and each one kind of has different strengths. Like those our Black Diamonds, I feel like were excellent race cars. Like probably the best made race car I've ever been around, as far as the construction, just the fit and finish, and everything, just excellent craftsmanship. Um, and we had really good. I felt like we had pretty good success on little tracks where you just needed a lot of like traction and side bite and stuff like that. Um, it seems like the general mode of the super late model racing, or really any, uh, well, probably a lot of the dirt racing now, but especially the super late model world. I think whenever they changed to the droop rule, and the like low travel chain limiter setup that they have now, it really kind of put an emphasis on corner speed because without the, for a little while we had like cool springs and like some pretty trick high travel chain limiters that really just put a lot of mechanical, like natural grip in the cars and allowed you to kind of have a tighter setup, be more aggressive, and move around on the track a little easier. Um, and you could just drag race really good because these things had so much traction. Whenever they went to the low travel, chain limiters they have now for this droop roll, it's so much harder to get straight line traction to like drag race up out of a corner or something. It really put an emphasis on corner speed, and then all of a sudden I think you see the Longhorns kind of start to dominate. They always had a really efficient front end, a really good steering front end, and in a good package, a good balance that they build a really good race car. Um, but it just seemed like that really efficient front end started to kind of win out, and then the more guys that start to move into them, then you just got more good data, more good feedback, all this stuff, and it just kind of snowballs, and it's kind of how it ends up where it is, I think.
Racing's kind of a chase sport, unfortunately. It's, one guy starts beating everyone, then people start falling in, and all of a sudden, I mean, I remember because it seemed like you said, it was kind of like Rocket was dominating for a long time. I remember, I think it was Chris Madden might have been one of the first ones that I really remember having some success in the Longhorn in like
Hmm.
that 2016 to 20, I don't know, maybe it was before that 2015, 2017 range. And then it was like, I don't know, like the last 4 or 5 years, it seems like Longhorn just took off like crazy. And now everyone that's winning's in a Longhorn, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It is wild to see the kind of the power shift, I guess, if you will. Rocket still builds, a great race car. It's just whenever I really think just the change in the sport, just those little rules changes can sometimes just shift the whole like trajectory of everything, and then yeah, it's such a numbers game. Once you get, once it kind of tips over into the favor of one chassis company, you just have so many more good drivers, good, um,
This
not
feedback.
yeah, not even that you have better drivers necessarily. I mean, Shep and the Rocket, I mean, it's one of the best in the country every night. But when you just have the numbers of good guys in your cars, you're getting that much more info from what's winning, this night, or what's good in this part of the country, because these guys are winning in your cars, and yeah, it just snowballs. It's pretty wild.
And then staying on the topic of the Longhorn and the race cars, because I'm sure it's a lot different from what we do week to week at our local stuff in our modifieds, but what's track to track setup wise? I mean, do you guys try and keep a good baseline that you're starting fresh every night with, or do you obviously you have a notebook on these tracks, and what what works and what doesn't. But I mean, where do you start when you see a fresh race or a new racetrack every year? You know,
Hmm.
where do you start with something like that?
Yeah, we've been well, we've been fortunate enough to get to race a lot the last couple of years, and that and we and everyone's got their own kind of approach or the couple little like things here and there that they feel like is something that they got, maybe that other people don't, and as long as you can build a program around some of those things and it be consistent, then you just try to carry those things into as many places as you can. And um, luckily, last year we fell into a pretty good little program like that, to where like the major components of the car, 4 bar positions and stuff like that, like we would unload the same anywhere we went. And then now all you got to do is figure out your like right front spring rates and loads, and then kind of combine that with the right rear spring rate or load, to complement that right front stuff for be it the banking or the speed of the track or something like that. And so yeah, when you go to a new place, you're going to try to start with the same things that have been your kind of you feel like your strong suits. You're going to unload with the ones that are the most consistent, and then just try to pick a track or two that looks pretty similar to it, shape and size and banking, and then just try to go back in your notes and say like, oh, I was at this track, it looks kind of like that. I had this right front spring, so we'll just start there. So um, yeah, it's we don't get to do as much data testing or have as much data maybe as everybody probably would wish. So you're just
Right.
a lot of it's still just guesswork.
So our like I said, late model world to our modified stuff is it's so different. Like on a night to night basis, I mean, are you pulling spring out every night, putting in the spring smasher, getting your load numbers? I mean, is that an every race occurrence?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, especially at the um, against the guys that we run against. Like you can't afford to leave anything on the table if you know that there might be a better situation. So like last week was probably a pretty good example. You're at Atomic the first night, which is super high banked, one of the higher banked tracks that we go to in the year. High speeds, high corner speeds, a lot of vertical loading from the banking, really aggressive driving style. And so you got, big right front springs, a lot more right rear rate and progression and stuff like that. And then the next day you go to Brownstown, which has one of the flattest corner entries that we go to. And so you're like completely on the other end of the spectrum, spring rate wise and approach wise. And yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty that goes into your night that we don't know about, but the stuff we know that you guys gotta, the amount of work it takes just to be ready for an event like that every night, and then plus what goes into it as the night goes on, what transpires in the heat race, speed, whatever, and tire choice now, and I'm sure there's way more than we can imagine that goes into a night of Lucas Oil late model racing.
There's no just winning the heat race. Up, car's good,
Oh, car's
fuel
good.
up, let's grind some tires and let's go race. That's not you guys.
Well, oddly enough, I feel like the best nights are those nights where you don't really like end up changing a whole lot. I think I think this Saturday Brownstown was probably an example of we probably should have done that. We won our heat and had good speed, and car was really easy to drive and stuff. And you're always just like, this track's going to change. I gotta stay on top of it. And I think the direction we went just didn't complement the style of racing that night. Like maybe if the track was a little different, that setup could have jived, but it ended up being like, say I was maybe going for a max side bite, drag race type of thing or something, and it ended up just being super momentumy, and now I can't turn at the end of the straightaway because my car's too tight, and then the whole thing unravels, like right, it gets way faster than you can imagine. So um, yeah, sometimes the well, I think that's probably the coolest thing that I learned racing around, like say Earl Pearson Jr. or something. Because I've always been that guy. Like if I can change it, I'm going to probably try to change it if I think it can, make me a little bit faster or more gripped up feeling or something. Um, but Earl, he'd like say win a heat or something, and you're like, all right, Earl, what are we going to change? He was like, oh, just let me figure out what tires we're going to put on, and we'll just go race this thing. And you're like, Earl, it's 100 laps, so we're gonna. And he's like, nope, no, that's gonna be good. I'll just go drive it. And you're like, okay. And then you go like win the race or something. And you're like, holy cow, like I'm just way overthinking this.
Well, that's like my brother was usually on here with us. I remember we had a night at Mississippi Thunder Speedway a couple years ago when he was in his B mod, and he won the heat race by like half a I mean, just smoked him. And he comes off, he's like, ah, we need more stagger, we need this. I'm like, Parker, just you just won by half a track. Like, I'll just put some fuel in the thing and put on a new right rear and go win. He changed everything and lead, and he was changing all this stuff, right front spring, went out for the feature and just sucked. And it
Yeah,
was like sometimes as racers we just overthink stuff, and like I said, I know your guys' stuff is night and day from what we do, but I still think it goes back to sometimes that racers as a whole do overthink things.
yeah, oh yeah. Even to this day, I mean, like, yeah, Saturday, I'm still kicking myself because like if I had just left it as it was in the heat, like I'd say we at least run top 10 instead of, instead of spinning out and all the junk, But you're just you always think you can do more, what I mean? So it's a lot of times we'll shoot ourselves in the foot really easily.
Right.
I think one of the bigger things I learned with the overthinking and racing, I guess, since I've been able to be a little more competitive, is just the trying to control my own speed and not trying to worry about this guy or this guy around me, or if I can barely see him every time, this or that. Try to not focus on him and just go as fast as I can go. And I think that's one thing that kind of helps me calm down when I'm out there
Yeah.
is just not worrying about anyone else, just trying to make my car go the fastest.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to race the racetrack and not the other race cars, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is hard to focus on just doing the best in your lane at that moment, when there's a lot of action going on and stuff.
I feel like your guys' stuff is so much more fast paced, so it's like, you guys
Yeah,
can be out
it's
there, oh, just driving through the black at Eldora, and all of a sudden here comes Bobby Pierce throwing a slide job on lap two, and it's like, you guys have just got to be on your toes all the time, I would think, in those race cars. I mean, I love watching you race because I don't want to say you're a smasher. I'm sure you're a lot more methodical in person than it looks like on TV, but you drive the shit out of a race car. I like watching you race. I mean, it looks like you see a hole and you shoot it and you drive hard. You're fun to watch, but like I said, you've got to be so reactive, I feel like, in those late models that you guys are driving. Um, yeah, it's a lot different than what we do.
Yeah, it is wild. It seems like more and more, well, the passing and stuff under green is getting, I feel like, a little bit harder. The longer we've gone in this droop roll era right here, I feel like the dirty air is pretty tough to pretty tough to work around. And so like those first couple laps, like say on a feature, might be a 50 lap feature, but those first couple laps, like you just got to go and get everything you can, just because once it starts to kind of like fall out a little bit, um, yeah, it just gets real. Unless the track is just really dynamic and moves around a lot, or ends up just being insanely racy. Um, it gets really tricky to make up ground and or make um, big moves on people. And so yeah, whenever you got that little bit of speed, like you just got to use it like now. Like it's pretty. I used to I used to think that these races were always like tire conservation and stuff like that, and taking care of your car. Not, I mean, still the aero is important, so you don't want to like ding it up too bad. But yeah, when you've got mile an hour, you just got to use it. Like it's pretty
Right.
crazy.
So now, yeah, you said something about aero. I do want to touch on that. Being you've raced a late model, for whatever it's been, 15, 10 years. How big has aero gotten, the last 5, 6 years? I mean, how crucial is that to the sport?
I feel like I mean I don't know that the cars have gotten. I mean they're definitely maybe a little bit bigger and a little bit more skewed on the deck and some of these things. But I think that we've just fine tuned all the little things around all of it. and we're driving like so much harder and probably like getting a little bit more out of our cars than people realize maybe was in there back before our setups were refined and they were as easy to drive as they are now. Um, and so now that like the competition, all that stuff's so much tighter, I think that aero is just kind of showing how critical it always has been. Um, and then I'm of the personal opinion that I think that the droop rule actually hurt our racing. As far as the aero goes, I feel like not the height of the car. I hadn't seen that really be a big deal. Because I think that was their original intent was just keep these cars from getting so jacked up in the air and stuff like that. But I think whenever they took away the cool chain limiters, you take so much kind of like free grip almost away from the cars and drivability. And you put the whole setup into this small window and like your grip, in the tires and all this stuff in such a smaller window. Whenever you get behind another car, um, and you're going to lose the downforce and side force off your car, or whenever that takes place, that chain limiter's got so little travel and so little compliance that when you slide out from behind that car, it takes so much longer to get the tires hooked back up and get yourself settled again to get your speed going again. That it's a lot harder to be around other cars. I feel like I don't remember the dirty air being as bad, say like 4 or 5 years ago, to where the cars just had a ton of compliance, ton of movement. You could charge them behind somebody, come out from behind them, and I think would rip right up as soon as you got to the out from behind them, and you could just carry on and do your thing. And so yeah, I don't. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if that's you know how scientific that is, but
Right.
just the bit of racing that we've gotten to do, I feel like there's something there. So yeah, I don't know. I do feel like it's on the brink of needing to make some big changes because it seriously affects every lap that we make in these things. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, is it something you got to be, conscious of, like, somewhere like Port Royal or, these big tracks where you're going, you're really carrying a lot of speed, like falling a guy in on his rear bumper right in on the wall. I mean, is that something you got to be conscious of? Like, hey, he takes the arrow off my nose. I'm going to stuff it in the fence. I mean, is that something that you're actively thinking about in the race car?
Yeah, for sure. At the bigger tracks, it's all like super magnified, and I think it's on everyone's mind. So we all maybe pay a little more attention to it at like say a Port Royal or Eldora or something like that. Um, but I've felt it even all the way down to like Fairbury running the bottom and stuff like that. Like if you drive in right on a guy's bumper with the car real square, you're gonna miss the corner. And some of that maybe is the loose dirt coming off his tires to a degree, but yeah, I think it like that. I used to sounds this is kind of a random story, I guess, but I remember driving around. I guess the last real job I ever had was it was like a delivery driver for this company back in New Mexico. They had this like big document storage warehouse, and I deliver documents to these businesses all over town, and had this little like Chevy HHR or something like that, and
That's what I drive.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, I drove it all over town, and it had the instant fuel economy on the dash, which I thought was cool because my truck literally has roll up windows. Like I got nothing like that. and so you're like just driving all day long. All you got to do is look at this instant economy, and like it would stay pretty even until you got above 55, and then as soon as you got above 55, that economy started to go away. No matter how easy we're on the gas, like if you wanted to keep it above 55, that economy was going away. So I feel like there's something in that 55 mile an hour area right there. Like as soon as you get to that point, that air is huge. If you're, you know, 45, 50 mile an hour and above, like that air makes a difference.
Sure.
It's exponentially more the faster you go. Like aero is super progressive. It's not like linear, but that's why when you get to like Cup or F1 or anything where you're running 200 mile an hour, like the whole sport's dictated by air.
Sure.
Or we're
Yeah.
not quite that fast, obviously, but we're in that weird stage where like we've got more horsepower than an F1 car or a cup car, but yeah, we can only do like 130 maxed out because we got so much drag built into our platform, like into our body situation. But you need that grip for the corner speeds. We're like right in that weird little window right there.
Well, we're even starting to see it. I mean, Zach races modifieds. Um, we're even starting to see it in some of the modified stuff. We'll see stuff where, like a deer, even at Deer Creek, guys are up on the wall and someone throws a slide job across their nose. And all of a sudden, you see the right front pick up, and all of a sudden, they're up in the fence. Um, yeah, I just think it kind of goes to show, how much aerodynamics really is starting to play into the sport, especially now. I mean, it's been played a big factor in the late models for quite a while, but the modified stuff is really it's getting big in the mod stuff, it sure seems like.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think we're just all getting so refined on all the little ends of our, all the little parts and pieces of our programs, and we've all, the sport as a whole has had so much time with 4 bar suspension, that we're all just like maximizing everything, and then so all the like when you lose something big like aero grip, all of a sudden it's like that much more noticeable. I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's wild, especially when you get to the big tracks. Like I said, it's magnified when you're um run along, like say on the wall or something where like you can't step out, like say there's a brown strip up against the wall and you need to be in it. You can't like offset yourself to keep air on yourself, or you're going to be in the lane or out of the lane and not make any speed. But if you're trying to get close to somebody in the lane, and it's about, from what I can tell, it's about 70 feet from the car. Once you get about 70 foot from the guy in front of you, now if you drive your car exactly the way you did before, like you're going to lose the nose. And so now you're having to like yaw the car a little extra, which means you're slipping the tires a little bit more. And now you're just like parked. You can't go any faster, because like, especially at the big tracks where you got so much air on the car, and when you yaw the car, you're slipping the tires. The body's basically bigger to the air, so you got more drag, and so you just like stop gaining speed, and it gets really tricky.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about all the stuff you guys have to think about while you're, doing 110 mile an hour on the racetrack.
Yeah, it's a handful. I think just getting to do it a lot is probably the most helpful thing, because I thought that a lot too. Is like, how do these guys like Kyle Larson and stuff just like make such good decisions in the middle of it? Like I swear that dude could play chess while in the middle of,
Yeah.
and I think just being at speed a lot um, helps that out. Just kind of helps get you get kind of used to just going fast around there, so you just start moving on to thinking about other things.
Sure.
And that guy's so used to racing. I mean, all he does is race and fly to here and race, and
Yeah, it's pretty.
it's
Do you watch him ripping the top in NASCAR this weekend? Do you see any videos of that?
Dude, I with like 10 to go, I was like, yeah, this Kyle's out of it. Like he hit the wall too many times, like he was done. And he just like he just turns it up to 11. Like he just
Oh yeah.
finds more. It's nuts.
Yes, it is. He is. I will still say he's probably the number one wheel I've probably seen in my lifetime. I mean, there's some good guys that I would say just can naturally hop in anything and wheel. I mean, your RTJs and your Nick Hoffmans and guys like that. But Kyle Larson could drive a wheelbarrow and be better than everyone. I mean, he is so good.
Yeah, I would someday love to see, I don't know how, I mean, I think when you get to that level of like say F1 and NASCAR, there's probably a lot of politics and all this other stuff, but like it would be super cool to see him getting like an F1 car or something like that and just see what he could do, because yeah, he just seems like he's on that like rate, that like elite end of any of the guys we've ever got to watch. Like it's pretty sweet.
Oh, and he'd hop in an F1 car and you give him a couple of years and he'll be winning races.
Oh yeah.
But so yeah, kind of going off of that now, we're talking, different race cars, whatnot. Is there any race car you haven't driven or if you could drive any type of race car other than a late model, what would it be?
I feel like I'd really like to run a sprint car sometime. I've hot lapped one once years ago back in my home track in New Mexico. A buddy of mine had a 305, and we were on like in like a daytime practice or something like that. And he's like, hop in this thing. And he was way smaller than me, so like barely fit in this thing. And just made like 5 or 7 laps, but it was such a unique experience compared to the trucks and stuff that I've driven. Um, and on iRacing, which is the only other place I've got to run them sprints, I just love the style of driving. Just using that wing to turn the car and timing it off of that wing over and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, something about that just seems like it'd be really cool.
Is the end goal for you someday like a NASCAR or something big like that, or do you want to be a dirt late model driver? Is that kind of the top of your scale?
I mean, my my goal so far has always just been, be at the high end on the dirt late model deal. I definitely never would rule out, running NASCAR or some pavement stuff. If it presented itself. The tricky thing is nowadays it seems like these everyone's that's in there so young.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like 36 or something, so I'm like way at the top end of the age of some of these guys. But no, I've always I try to be a student and fan of all of it because it's just all car racing, it's all cool, So I'd be open to any of it.
Yeah.
Do you follow any like the USMTS stuff or any UMP modified stuff? Do you watch any of that on Racing Dirt or Flow?
Um, a little bit, probably not as much as I could. Um, like you usually know, who the best guys are or something like that, but I don't watch as many of the races I probably should.
Yep. But let's see what else. We got a few on here left on here, Garrett. Then we'll get you off here. I know you got a busy week. Yeah, we'll go into that. What do you got? So you got Macokota coming up this week. What's kind of your upcoming schedule look like? The next month or so. What do you got all coming up on your schedule?
Yeah, so we got Makokata this weekend. It's a practice tomorrow and two race nights if it all goes right. I think the next thing that we're gonna maybe try to do, I think there's a World of Outlaws weekend back at that Atomic Speedway in Ohio. That we're thinking if nothing else presents itself closer, we might go check it out just to get some more laps because in the past, Lucas has only gone to Atomic just one time, just 1 point show. But now I think we go back there again later in the summer. So laps there would be good, and anytime you run against national competition, it's you're just only going to get sharper. So I think there's Atomic the next weekend potentially, and then the weekend after that, I want to say is the Illini 100 maybe at Farmer City. Um,
That's
that
always looked like a fun place.
Farmer's awesome. Yeah, Farmer's probably up there in the list of favorite tracks. Like it's such a unique shape and style with one side having the wall and the other side not having a wall. It builds a massive like 3 4 foot tall cushion on in 3 and 4, and then gets slick as ice on the other end because it's got no cushion. And yeah, it's just got this kind of like flow to it that a lot of tracks don't have. It's really fun.
I always like watching your guys' right rear quarter panels coming off a turn four, and it's like it looks like you guys are just gonna rip the rear clip off that race car every single lap, and I mean, and you guys are just dragging that quarter every time.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, that's probably one of the things that drew me to it was watching the videos of it. Seeing him like appear out of nowhere from behind that wall and like jet down the straightaway all of a sudden. Like, yeah, it's always been one of my favorites.
What is number one on your list?
Um, I mean, probably a little biased because it's so close to home. Votto's really good.
And you
It
always seem to run good there.
Yeah, yeah, and I really didn't even have, probably any more laps than anybody else. That track didn't exist until maybe 19, I think, or something like that. And I already moved out of there. Um, so yeah, pretty much, as much laps as anybody else has a late model, but for some reason, just like the shape and the banking and the dirt is maybe familiar. It's just a cool place, man. I wish we could race late models there a whole lot. Like every time we're out there, all the late model guys talk and they're like, man, if you could just pick this thing up like and set it in the Midwest, like it would kill. Like it's so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably my favorite. Like every time I go there, I just enjoy getting around the place. Farmer City is really fun. Um, Port Royal is definitely climbing up the list. I mean, anytime you win a race, you get kind of,
It
uh,
helps a little bit.
yeah, it helps a little bit. But it's just for as big as it is super racy, and when you're on there, it doesn't look that wide, but it just has enough lanes, and the lanes all have something to offer that you can move around a ton, and you can get away from cars enough, which is such a big deal with that dirty air and stuff that it races really good.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I guess one more I want to get here. Favorite non-racing memory at a racetrack. So maybe not it could be a race you've watched or a guy you grew up watching, but what's your favorite memory at a racetrack that you have that doesn't involve you in the race car, maybe?
Let's see.
Gotta dig deep for this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. That's one of the cool things. Like, I guess you don't realize until someone asks you, like, how fortunate you are to get to do it this much. But, um, I don't know, probably getting a race or, well, I guess it'd be race memories.
Oh,
um,
you can do race memories. That was kind of a tough question, I guess. I shouldn't have asked it that way, but I guess it's what's a memory that sticks out above the rest? Maybe it could be a race or something maybe you remember from your childhood at a racetrack. Is there just something that sticks out?
well, I think probably, just going to those races when I was a kid. And you really don't remember anything about the races themselves or even how, like, say my dad did when I was there or anything like that. But just being there, playing with your cars in the dirt, and the races are going on, and I don't know, it just felt like you're home. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
For a little racing kid, that stuff like that. I think that's always like ingrained in you. So anytime you go to a racetrack, you just feel like you're home. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
The family part about racing is some of the best part of it, really. I love our Saturdays at our local track where we'll pit next to each other and his brother and we got a whole group of us and it's always the best. Sometimes a lot better off the track
Yeah.
results than on the track, but
Yeah,
we still make a good time out of it.
yeah, no, absolutely.
I always like waking up on Saturday morning, getting out in the garage by about 8 o'clock in the morning, get your stuff, whatever you gotta do, get it washed up, get it whatever you gotta fix from Friday night, and it's like load, get to the racetrack by 2, 3 o'clock, and they all pull in, and it's just there's something about that that's just if you're not a racer, you don't understand it. You show up to that racetrack, you get unloaded early, you hang out with your buddies, and it's addicting.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
But nope. Yeah, I guess we'll leave you here, Garrett. If you want us, let people know, where they can go ahead, find your apparel, your social media pages, some of that stuff. Thank maybe a few of your sponsors. We'll get you off here.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got a racing website. I think it's GarrettAlberson.com. We got a Facebook page, Garrett Alberson Racing. And I think I don't remember the exact, but we have a Shopify on there. It's got some merch. I think that's linked on the website there, and uh, yeah, that's how you can follow some like all the Lucas stuff's on Flow Racing, and some of the Outlaw stuff on Dirt Vision, and yeah, we just got a ton of cool sponsors. We got Sunoco Race Fuel, Sea Valley Transportation, Bill Stein Shocks, Low Voltage Solution. Um, we got a couple new ones on this year. Cheap Cars, Dickie's Doghouse. Some guys that have been with us for a while. Romer Machine and Welding here in Davenport. Build Sport Shop. Nutrient Ag Supply or Nutrient Ag Solutions. Um, just trying to think. Yeah. Titan Race Products. Building us some cool parts out of Arkansas. We got a lot of good product help. Go Lithium batteries, Dirt Car Lift, Swift Springs, Fast Shaft. We got a lot of family that like our whole family's in on the racing, and we got a big group, Sims Family Racing, that chip in a lot, and or what they best they can, and everybody just supports it, and Mitchell Ranch, a bunch of people that have come in from that family group and friend group. Capital Screen, Browning Auto Parts, Arbor Auto Works. Yeah, just so many cool people. It's been so fun to see the support. Um, just through the whole thing, and everybody's you even when we weren't running super good, we just had so many people that just believe in me and believe in the team and just the direction we're going. It's been awesome.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
hey
man.
man, we thank you a lot for getting on here. I know you got a busy schedule, but for taking some time to sit down and talk with us. We wish you the best of luck this week at Makokada and in your upcoming season. And yeah, we'll leave you with that. Thanks a lot, man.
Yep. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, man.
You betcha.